today and tomorrow and to 2025, that's this year, in a while from now. And this high-profile event will see convergence of world leaders, technology pioneers and policymakers to discuss the governance, ethics and societal impacts of artificial intelligence, and most importantly, how India is emerging as a central key player to drive the global AI agenda. We will be going live across to Paris on the special broadcast. We will be also joined by special experts on the subject, plus our reporters on ground from Paris. So let's begin. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 3-day visit to France. The Prime Minister will be participating in AI Action Summit, where India is the co-chair of this big event. Prime Minister Modi will also be holding talks with French President Emmanuel Macron towards strengthening India-France relations. The Prime Minister of India and President Macron will also address the India-France CEOs Forum. And from Paris, Prime Minister Modi will also be travelling to Marseille to inaugurate consulate there. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi was welcomed warmly by French President Emmanuel Macron at official dinner for visiting leaders attending the AI Action Summit in Paris. In a post on platform X, Prime Minister Modi said that he was delighted to meet his friend President Macron in Paris. At the dinner, Prime Minister Modi also met US Vice President J.D. Vance, who is also in France to attend the AI summit co-chaired by India. And earlier, upon arrival at hotel in Paris, Prime Minister Modi was warmly greeted by Indian diaspora. Joyous Indian diaspora caught a glimpse of Prime Minister Modi and they waved Indian flags. The bonhomie symbolizes the growing friendship between India and France. These images on your screen also symbolize the happiness writ large on their faces of the Indian diaspora upon meeting Prime Minister Modi on the French soil. The future of artificial intelligence takes center stage in Paris as world leaders and tech executives gather for the AI Action Summit. Now, this is co-hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron as well as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This high-profile event aims to establish a global framework for AI governance while pushing for more ethical, more just, more accessible and sustainable development of the technology. And with top political figures and the tech industry leaders in attendance, the summit could play a pivotal role in shaping AI's future. Here's more.
I am delighted to welcome you to this unprecedented AI summit in Paris, co-chaired by President Macron and Prime Minister Modi.
With this, the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit opens in Paris. The event, co-hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, brings together around 1,500 participants at the Grand Palais. The summit's primary focus, mapping AI governance worldwide, promoting ethical and accessible AI, and reinforcing European sovereignty over the technology. In an interview, French President Macron announced that France will also announce private sector investments totaling some 109 billion euros in its artificial intelligence sector.
Europe will accelerate, France will accelerate, and therefore for us, France, we announce tomorrow at this summit 109 billion euros of investments in artificial intelligence over the coming years.
As discussions begin, world leaders have started arriving in the French capital. US Vice President J.D. Vance touched down in Paris with his family, receiving a warm welcome with French Overseas Minister Manuel Valls. Chinese Vice Premier Zhang Guoqing too arrived in Paris. Beyond the political sphere, industry heavyweights including Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai, Microsoft President Brad Smith, and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman are set to deliver key addresses on AI's future. This is the third high-level AI summit in recent years. The Paris summit sets out to achieve three major objectives: provide access to independent, safe and reliable AI to a wide range of users, develop AI that is more environmentally friendly, ensure global governance of artificial intelligence that is both effective and inclusive. The Paris AI Summit will focus on five major themes: public service AI, future of work, innovation and culture, trust in AI, global governance of AI. With AI evolving at an unprecedented pace, the summit could lay the groundwork for how nations and industries harness its potential while mitigating risks. As discussions continue in Paris, the world watches closely to see what agreements and policies emerge.
And as we stand by for the big event, the AI Summit co-chaired by France and India in Paris, let me take this opportunity to welcome our special panelists on this very special broadcast. Joining us on the show is Greg Simons from Tureba University in Latvia. He's research scholar in especially geopolitics, particularly keen interest in France and EU affairs. Thank you very much, Simons. It's always a pleasure to have you on our national news broadcaster, Doordarshan. And always it's honor to welcome Veena Sikri ma'am, Ambassador Veena Sikri, former senior diplomat, joining us on this special broadcast. We also will be joined by, in a while from now, Professor Swaran Singh, foreign affairs experts from JNU in India. I would like to start with Ambassador Sikri. For the fact that this summit, it's first of its kind. Why? For us, more important because it's being co-chaired by India and France, and the timings of it. The pivotal role that it is going to decisively play in defining the contours of the AI in future, and in that, India being central or central driving force as far as the global AI agenda is concerned. Your opening remarks, Ambassador Sikri.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I think this is a very significant visit by Prime Minister Modi to France. Of course, India and France have a very traditional, very significant and very important strategic partnership between each other. And it's one of the first strategic partnerships that India had declared with any foreign government. So it's very important in itself that Prime Minister Modi has been invited by President Macron to Paris for a bilateral visit. But in addition, this AI summit, it's the third AI summit of its kind. The first was held in UK, the second in Seoul in South Korea, and the third one in Paris. But this one is significant for two reasons. One is, from our point of view, we are greatly honored that Prime Minister Modi has been invited to co-chair this summit, which is a great honor given to him by President Macron. It shows the role that President Macron feel that India would and should play in the future of artificial intelligence and in the future of these five very important themes that they have worked out for this artificial intelligence summit. I would also like to draw attention to the earlier collaboration between India and France on the International Solar Alliance, on renewable energy sector. And there too, President Macron and Prime Minister Modi had jointly inaugurated the International Solar Alliance office in Delhi, and they had come to this agreement way back in 2015 at the summit. The climate change summit. So from there, from climate change, we've now come to artificial intelligence. The importance of this summit on artificial intelligence, I think, is that they've got these 5 themes. You have said about those 5 themes, but the theme of global governance of artificial intelligence, I think this is a very, very important aspect, because it's going to affect all our futures. It's going to affect all that we do. It's going to affect the information that students will get. It's going to affect how they will use that information in their own lives and in affecting the future of the world. I think the question of ethics is very important. We have highlighted that, but I think this is very valuable, because in the name of artificial intelligence, we cannot lose our focus on ethical governance. Cannot lose our focus that artificial intelligence is meant as a tool for human beings. We cannot allow artificial intelligence to master us. And that is the fear, that if you create this artificial intelligence with data that you yourselves have supplied to them, and there is so much talk already about the kind of data that various artificial intelligence sources have used, whether it is DeepSeek in China, whether it is GPT, there's so much discussion about the material that they have used. Have they followed global copyright laws and regulations? Have they used the material ethically? Have they used it after consulting the original authors? So this is a very, very important range of issues that will come up at this Artificial Intelligence Summit. And we certainly do look forward to our Prime Minister's speech, to President Macron's speech, and we look forward to the central role that India will place in AI. Because if AI is to succeed, the world has to trust artificial intelligence. But the world will trust artificial intelligence only if they are sure that there's ethical values are followed, that global governance issues are followed, and this is what we are looking forward to.
Yes, Ambassador Sikri, that point on global trust, and trust particularly in India, and its the points that India has raised, the high priority areas, or the underlying theme. Greg, this is for you, as I also welcome Professor Swaran Singh. Greg, global perspective, the way the AI leaders across the globe are looking at this summit, this being co-chaired by India along with France, when it comes to driving home the agenda, as pointed out by Ambassador Sikri, of that of ethical, developmental, democratic, and more importantly, environment sustainability. Greg Simons.
Well, it's an interesting coalition here. I mean, of course, India and France have had a long history of mutual cooperation and diplomatic recognition since independence. But if we look at AI and machine learning, this is often something which is deeply guarded by those that possess it. It's seen as a strategic advantage over adversaries and competitors. So, I mean, if we're looking at the interaction between the United States and China, for example, it's a negative kind of relationship, because it's about competition and conflict. It's about who possesses this new advantages in this new front in global competition. So in this regard, they're looking at the weaknesses and threats and focusing on them and to their own power and influence. But if we look at these issues, France and India have found another path. They have found focusing on strengths and opportunities, rather.
Okay.
And this is somewhat refreshing, because it's not often done in international relations, where you have now a member of the global north that is facing a number of different difficulties, and a rising member of the global south. So it's symbolic in a number of different dimensions.
Yes, it's symbolic in a number of ways. We're going to talk about those aspects throughout this special broadcast. But taking the point that you raised to Professor Swaran Singh, Professor Singh, India being seen as a very significant global actor in AI space, particularly when we see this sort of I don't know if I can use the word hegemony, or for that matter, the competition between two giants like US and China in AI space. So the timings of this is very important. Wouldn't you think so? And what are your thoughts on India driving the agenda?
Thank you, Sakal, for having me on your program. And let me begin as an academic to say, if you look at the strategic autonomy that underpins the foreign policies of both France and India, I often describe India, including in artificial intelligence. You would remember India has already launched a 10,000 crore worth of a program called Making AI in India, Making AI for India. And the fact that India is now globally known as a country that can produce advanced technologies at a very cost-effective, at a very low price, and also implement them at an enormous mass scale that perhaps no other nation can. And that makes India a very attractive player when a country like France wants to also look at a collaborative effort to go forward and build ethical, developmental focused approach to developing artificial intelligence. You also know that Indian Prime Minister, among others, is also visiting International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which is the major fusion-driven nuclear power generation effort of 6 nations, in which India is one. So in several areas of advanced technology, to make sure it is equitable, inclusive, and so on. And that also makes India look like a voice of the global south, which France, of course, also has an equal interest in engaging India. And in that sense, there is a whole range of spectrum of issues that make India a very deserving candidate to become the co-chair of this summit for artificial intelligence.
Yes,
India had hosted a summit like this last year also.
Okay. So, Ambassador Sikri, as a diplomat, how do you see this? The fact, simply, why was India chosen at this juncture, this being the 3rd edition?
Well, I think, of course, it's a great honor, but I think it's also based on India's own tremendous contributions in the field of information technology, in the field of computing technology. And one can see the success of India's efforts is that even in Silicon Valley, there's so many leading Indians who are heading the major companies of the world, and Silicon Valley is known to have a very high proportion of Indians living there. But I think it's a tribute also to the fact that India and France share this similar approach to foreign policy based on strategic autonomy. And we have a great understanding with each other. So we trust each other, and we know that any initiatives that come out of this conference, the future mapping of the role of artificial intelligence, the governance issues, the ethical issues, we know that India and France trust each other in implementing them sincerely and in playing a role in this area as well. So it's a combination of both. It's a combination of the actual role that India can and will play in artificial intelligence, and it's a combination of the strategic autonomy of India and France that we trust in each other so much. And it shows that in the future, if there is a good outcome, the GPAI, the global partnership for artificial intelligence that is hoped that will be one of the outcomes of this summit, will have an important implementation role for India and France, since we have co-chaired the summit, which will be adopting the GPAI. And that will be the future of AI that India and France will hope to lead. We do have very important people at the summit. We see that the Vice President of USA, Vice President J.D. Vance is there, the Vice Prime Minister of China is there, many CEOs are there.
Correct.
And this occasion for our Prime Minister to lead co-chair with President Macron is very significant.
Okay, and from the global lens, taking this to Greg, the points that were raised by Ambassador Sikri, just to understand from you the global perspective, how the world is looking at this summit. It's coming at a time when we see this growing rivalry in AI space between the West and China. It's almost reached a tipping point, Greg, and you've been tracking that AI war very closely. Low-cost DeepSeek, you see how they are competing with each other, with the leading Western alternatives. I don't want to get into details of that. So in this, India converging with France, and in the midst of more than 1,000 global policymakers, tech executives, who in AI space under the coming together on the same platform under France and India co-chairing the event?
Well, of course, this showcases India's potential as well as what it is able to do already. Because, I mean, I think not everyone understands that India has a great investment and a great track record in AI and these technologies. So I think the problem was that this lack of awareness, this showcasing together with Macron, I mean, highlights it to the world. And I think, I mean, the fact that Macron and Modi have this, I would say, rather cordial, open friendship in public, I mean, this builds on this kind of, I would say it's a kind of branding of India as a place which can interact and contribute to the development and to cooperation within something like AI internationally with European partners, or for that matter, other partners. And I think this will potentially give India some economic opportunities to exploit further down the track. So I think for India, there is a lot of potential which can come from this AI Action Summit. Because if we look back in 2023,
we have, I'm just interrupting you here. We have these live visuals. Please stay with us, our guests. Google CEO Sundar Pichai, amongst others, arriving in Paris for AI Action Summit. Yes, Greg, please go ahead.
So, yeah, 2023, of course, India and France, under the initiative of Modi and Macron, created this program, Horizon 2047, which is symbolic, marking the 100 years independence as well as relations between the two. So in this respect, what you see at this AI Action Summit is a further deepening of not only this personal interaction, but this interaction at these other levels, more pragmatic levels. So I think there is potentially a lot more to come after this summit.
Okay. Professor Saran Singh, you want to come in here? India stressing always on the need of the equitable access to AI to avoid or rather bridge that digital divide or the tech sovereignty that India is seeking in AI space.
Thank you, Sakal. Actually, the significance of India when it comes to artificial intelligence was underlined way back in June of 2020 when this global partnership for artificial intelligence was conceived by 15 nations. Of course, we went into pandemic and it took some time. So we saw that United Kingdom hosted the first global summit. And of course, South Korea summit happened last year. And this is the third summit in Paris. But India also hosted its own global partnership summit on artificial intelligence in December last year. And Prime Minister had clearly laid out what are the aims and objectives, saying India wants to position itself in the leadership position in artificial intelligence, but fundamentally aimed at building inclusive, democratic, sustainable, ethical, developmental focused artificial intelligence. And the purpose is to make sure that just like several other technologies like information technology has actually expanded the wide divide between those who have and those who do not have. And therefore, how India can contribute that artificial intelligence does not further widen that gap between haves and have-nots, and how to fill that widening gap was the primary focus. And that is where the voice of Global South, focus of India comes in. And India is not only being credited for what it can bring to the table, but the vision and the kind of broad-based democratization of AI, bringing Global South along, making artificial intelligence sustainable, affordable, so that it can ensure human development around the world and doesn't become kind of a monopolization by few corporations or a source for geopolitical contestations that we see sometime happening right now between the United States and China. And therefore, I think that is where, France finds India extremely attractive partner.
Okay.
And, in that sense, not only the next year, they have already coined to be India-France Year of Innovation, but they also have now designed something called Horizon 2047 roadmap.
Yes.
How France and India will work together to make India a developed nation by that time.
Okay. Taking that point to Ambassador Sikri, do you think it is also going to provide or be seen as an opportunity for India to showcase its soft power in the area that is likely to be the game changer in near future, and India driving the whole tech sovereignty and bridging the digital divide in AI space? Or unmute your system.
Yeah, fine. Absolutely. I think Professor Swaran Singh already mentioned the 10,000 crore initiative that Government of India has launched for AI, to make in India and make for India. That's a very, very valuable initiative. It shows the high importance that the Government of India attaches to this field, and it shows our readiness to take the leadership role in this field. And I think given our natural skills and what we have done already in the, many decades, for the last many decades in the field of information technology and the leadership role we have very naturally acquired through our own skills and through our own achievements in this area. I think in AI, in the field of artificial intelligence also, India is all set to play this leadership role. And I think Prime Minister Modi's participation and co-chairing of this summit with President Macron is a very important milestone in this path that India has chalked for itself. And the steps we have taken, we have shown to our industry, we have shown to our young intellectuals, to our young software experts that we are ready. Government is ready to give the partnership to the people of India, to the technology specialists of India, to the entrepreneurs of India. And we have set the basis for that. And now we are showing that we also have the global leadership, which will make us ready. Now at this summit, Prime Minister Modi will hear firsthand, along with all the very specialist people who are with him, about the dangers along the path, the concerns for ethics that we spoke about earlier, the concerns for governance issues, the concerns for international copyrights, IPR problems. I think this is a very important area. So also now you're going to see that in India also the judiciary and others, everybody has to come up to speed with these issues and has to know how we can overcome these for the benefit of our experts and our people. I think there also has to be one more factor that we have to work on, which is introducing AI, the problems of AI, the ethics, the issues at the educational level in the schools and colleges, so that as the youngsters grow up, they already come to know that they are aware of the perils of AI, the benefits of AI, how it can be used, how it's it should not be allowed to overcome one's own individual intelligence and contribution. But at the same time, it's a very important tool to help individual students along their way to discoveries and acquiring knowledge. It's a very narrow path that has to be tread to make sure that we don't fall into the pitfalls. And when the internet came, everybody was scared of that, what would happen, and we are able to manage the pitfalls, although there are problems along the way. Similarly, with AI, we have to similarly manage the pitfalls and make even youngsters aware, so they don't become dependent on AI. They know the pitfalls that are awaiting them and how they can be easily exposed, in over-dependence on AI. So I think this is a very important aspect to tell our young students about as they grow up, so they are familiar with this area as well.
Right, ma'am. Greg, there is also a very inevitable technological gap that that these kinds of developments, that India wants to kind of minimize that. Where do you see it? How do you see India's role in bridging that technological gap in AI space?
Well, I mean, as has been noted by the other guest, this is the issue of AI and machine learning at the moment, because there is an attempt by the leading powers to get that advantage, to get that technological advantage over their adversaries and competitors. I mean, the United States and China going head to head over it with different forms of economic warfare and so forth. So, I mean, this is problematic because this is seen as something to possess, not something to share. And as such, I mean, this leaves certain parts of the world left behind. And I mean, you're going to see this growing gap unless there are further initiatives like this AI summit in France at the moment with Modi and Macron fronting it. So this sets an example, not only in terms of the implications of the technology, but also these other philosophical, ethical, and other questions about not exacerbating these gaps that already exist, and to show that cooperation and collaboration is much more win-win for everyone, rather than this attempt to hoard and defend this advantage.
France, can India and France give that template where AI is a win-win situation for all? Greg, to your understanding, since you understand Europe so deeply.
Could you say again? I couldn't quite hear.
Having said that, taking a cue from your point, do you think India can be a mover and driver in that space when you say AI to be a win-win situation for all? Do you think India can script that template for other major players of AI to follow?
Well, India, of course, has this history and culture of being this non-aligned status in not only rhetoric but in practice. So what we have here is India puts itself in a position where it can set or at least shape the global agenda in order to create this more win-win situation, rather than this traditional zero-sum game that is played by the big actors. And of course, India is a big actor, but it has the potential to set an example for the others, rather than just going with the status quo.
Okay. Professor Soren Singh, if you could just come in here, the fact that India seems to have a double advantage of AI, or an advantage of a double AI, because Prime Minister of India has often spoken about, or rather connected, artificial intelligence to aspirational India. You know, connecting the very space or the concept of artificial intelligence to, take this concept to everybody's living room. Aspirational India and artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. I think the greatness of any leader lies in how he or she can break complex issues into most simplistic terms to make sure every one of his countrymen or countrywoman understands where he wants to take the nation. So in that sense, Prime Minister has used multiple anecdotal ways to explain how India is organically, inherently connected to being, in a leading position when it comes to artificial intelligence. He also uses another term called that in many, languages in India, mother is called I, and therefore that again is also something artificial intelligence gets connected. Of course, Aspirational India that you, Sakal, gave an example is another way of explaining to Indian people as to why it is significant for us and how it connects to India's future and so on. And when it comes to India and France working together, India and France are now really doing a lot of things together. They have very strong foundations of defense cooperation in security, in nuclear, in space, and so on. So I think that kind of working with all the stakeholders is something that is very central to the thinking of India and France. Indeed, let me say that when in June of 2020, this global partnership of artificial intelligence was set up by 15 nations, the objective was very clearly to take all stakeholders along and make sure we are able to appreciate, recognize, and utilize the niche advantages or strengths that each of the stakeholders will bring to the board. And India definitely is one of the very visible, very capable, very well recognized partner in that pursuit which puts them away from, as I keep saying, geopolitical confrontations, becoming the kind of underwriting method of how artificial intelligence competition is happening. Here the focus is not just being on the lead, but also at the same time being able to reach out to everyone in terms of making sure it contributes to global governance, it contributes to development, and that is why Prime Minister is leading from the front, but he has a whole team. The scientific advisor of Prime Minister is attending roundtables, speaking to various universities. Foreign Minister had meetings with his counterpart. Joint Secretary of Cyber Diplomacy had his meeting with another counterpart. There are several working groups, and at different levels, bringing together different stakeholders. India is participating in all these various meetings to give a certain direction as to how artificial intelligence should be pursued, what should be the rules and regulations in managing that it stays within the domain of ensuring it is democratized, it is ethical, and so on. So at various levels, India is contributing to the dialogue going forward in terms of how this third edition of Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence that had the first summit meeting in UK, second summit meeting last year in South Korea, and is now happening in Paris. Meanwhile, you remember India had also hosted in December last year a similar global partnership summit for artificial intelligence, which is again puts India on the forefront of being very keen to participate in development of artificial intelligence, but not in terms of being selfish, but ensuring that it is sustainable in terms of involving all the stakeholders. And that is where when Europe today begins to also think in terms of how to deal with the Trump presidency,
correct,
which is going to, make certain concerns about how they can be doing things with other partner nations.
Since we have a subject expert from Europe on a show, let's take this thought to Greg. Greg, how significant is this summit and the timings of it for Europe by and large, driven by France?
So France is in a very awkward and tricky situation, if I to put it diplomatically, because nationally and internationally it is facing a number of serious political, social, economic problems. So if we look particularly, Macron is struggling with domestic politics. The government, he is in a serious pickle, so to speak. Now, internationally, he picked the wrong side in the US presidential elections. And now, he's offside with President Trump. Which is pretty evident considering some of Trump's comments about. In this regard, Prime Minister Modi is a life raft because of their cordial relations and the fact that you have a more reciprocal relationship and one that functions with a certain level of give and take by both sides, as opposed to the traditionally asymmetric relationship it has, for example, with the United States. So for Macron, this makes him look good on the international stage and also not so isolated as has been said in terms of his political trajectory. So this is definitely a big thing for him.
If I take the same question to Ambassador Sikri, how do you see this, ma'am? This being significant for the Europe?
Well, I think that this is a chance. Europe is in great difficulty right now, I think politically, because of the results of the what has been going on for so many years on the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And I think the economies have been severely affected. But I'm sure their interest as scientists, as technologists, as people of concern, who are concerned with the future of AI, they will be playing a very big role. And this is a time to make partnerships. I think that, all the people who are there from the Indian high-tech industry, from government, from the various ministries, they are looking at this summit also in terms of partnerships, meeting their counterparts from different countries, including Europe, and seeing how working together is possible within the pathways which we hope that the Paris summit will be able to lay out in terms of ethics, in terms of governance, in terms of the global, pathways that they want to lay out. And now there's going to be a major foundation which is going to be established to set up. Whether the foundation will have a role also in the governance issues, we don't know yet what the outlines and directions of that foundation are going to be, but it is expected that it will be set up before the end of this summit. So there's a lot that is hanging on this summit, and we do know it's the third. India had one in December last year, but I think this one, it is a tipping point. Now we also see that at this very point, a few weeks before this, the Chinese model DeepSeek came out. And for some time, it created a huge furor. And then it settled down because there were so many other issues which came up. As somebody, at one point, they thought, oh my gosh, this DeepSeek is going to take over everything because they're so reasonable and they have done such a lot in such a little time with such few resources. But then I think all that hoopla about DeepSeek has settled down now. There are many issues of where the IPR issues, whether they have followed that or not. The issues about what will happen if you use DeepSeek. Will your data, privacy of your data be affected? Because there has been that concern.
Ma'am, on your screens, live visuals from Paris. Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, accompanied by the French President Emmanuel Macron, walking into the grand venue of AI Action Summit. Live visuals from Paris, ladies and gentlemen, on your screen. The big summit co-chaired by France and India at the Grand Palais in Paris will see the convergence of over 1,500 guests, including more than 100 world leaders. On your screens, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, walking in the Grand Palais, the summit venue, with, alongside, of course, the French President, smiling. And why not? This AI Global Leaders Summit will see participation of global leaders, including Chinese Vice Premier, German Chancellor, Greek Prime Minister, amongst others. Also, the President of European Commission, who just walked in a while back, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. India co-hosting the AI summit in Paris, with France Prime Minister Modi being greeted by the global tech giant leadership there. We saw a while back Sundar Pichai shaking hands with Prime Minister Modi. Well, the summit will drive the global discourse as far as AI agenda, or a global AI agenda, is concerned, particularly driven forth and from the front by India being the co-chaired under the ruling dispensation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On your screens, these are the visuals. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, was received a while back with a very, very warm welcome upon his arrival in Paris. We now will also be showing you some of the highlights from the memorable welcome. The summit will drive the global discourse of artificial intelligence. This summit is very significant from India's point of view because India is co-chairing it with France as far as the governance of the AI technology and the broader discourse is concerned. He has arrived, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has arrived to attend the third AI summit at Grand Palais in Paris. On your screens, French President addressing the gathering. This is important because India is co-chairing the summit with its focus on reshaping industries and also redefining the global technological landscape. French President addressing the large gathering there, which includes more than 1,500 guests, Ursula von der Leyen amongst others on the screen, including more than 100 world leaders. The co-host, French President, reaching out to this spectacular gathering out there, the who's who in the AI global space attending the event.
the Palais d'Antin has been made open once again to the general public. So it was built, this pavilion was built in 1937. It was Mr. Perrin, who was a Nobel laureate for chemistry, and he was convinced that by demonstrating to the French and to the world what science can do, we could convince them to embrace progress and therefore have science serve the interests of humanity. And I think that is our challenge with artificial intelligence, which is to ensure that these incredible technological innovations with new computing power, that all of the incredible advances of AI and its implications in various sectors be in the interests of humanity in a world that is disrupted by crisis. Thanks to open dialogue, we're lucky enough to have India, the US, China, Europe, the African continent, and the Latin American continent here. We have heads of state and government, researchers, civil society, entrepreneurs, investors, and that gives us an opportunity to engage in dialogue and to advance on this path of understanding science and ensuring that it serves collective progress. I won't be much longer. I'm incredibly pleased to have you here at this summit, which I co-chair with Prime Minister Modi. And so, dear Prime Minister, dear Narendra, I'm actually going to give you the floor now so that we can hear from you and hear what India has to say to the world on AI. Thank you very much for being here.
Excellencies, friends, let me begin with a simple experiment. If you upload your medical report to an AI app, it can explain in simple language, free of any jargon, what it means for your health. But if you ask the same app to draw an image of someone writing with their left hand, the app will most likely draw someone writing with the right hand. Because that is what the training data is dominated by. It shows that while the positive potential of AI is absolutely amazing, there are many biases that we need to think carefully about. That is why I am grateful to my friend, President Macron, for hosting this summit, and for inviting me to co-chair it. Friends, AI is already reshaping our polity, our economy, our security, and even our society. AI is writing the code for humanity. AI is writing the code for humanity in this century. But it is very different from other technology milestones in human history. AI is developing at an unprecedented scale and speed, and being adapted and deployed even faster. There is also a deep interdependence across borders. Therefore, there is a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that uphold our shared values, address risks, and build trust. But governance is not just about managing risks and rivalries. It is also about promoting innovation and deploying it for the global good. So, we must think deeply and discuss openly about innovation and governance. Governance is also about ensuring access to all, especially in the global south. It is where the capabilities are most lacking, be it compute, power, talent, data, or the financial resources. Friends, AI can help transform millions of lives by improving health, education, agriculture, and so much more. It can help create a world in which the journey to sustainable development goals becomes easier and faster. To do this, we must pull together resources and talent. We must develop open source systems that enhance trust and transparency. We must build quality data sets free from biases. We must democratize technology and create people-centric applications. We must address concerns related to cybersecurity, disinformation, and deepfakes. And we must also ensure that technology is rooted in local ecosystems for it to be effective and useful. Friend, loss of jobs is AI's most feared disruption. But history has shown that work does not disappear due to technology. Its nature changes and new types of jobs are created. We need to invest in skilling and reskilling our people for an AI-driven future. Friends, there is no doubt that the high energy intensity of AI needs to be looked into. This will require green power to fuel its future. India and France have worked together for years through initiatives like the International Solar Alliance to harness the power of the sun. As we advance our partnership to AI, it is a natural progression from sustainability to innovation to shape a smarter and responsible future. At the same time, sustainable AI does not only mean using clean energy. AI models must also be efficient and sustainable in size, data needs, and resources requirements. After all, the human brain manages to compose poetry and design spaceships using less power than most light bulbs. Friends, India has successfully built a digital public infrastructure for over 1.4 billion people at a very low cost. It is built around an open and accessible network. It has regulations and a wide range of applications to modernize our economy, reform governance, and transform the lives of our people. We have unlocked the power of data through our data empowerment and protection architecture. And we have made digital commerce democratic and accessible to all. This vision is the foundation of India's national AI mission. That is why, during our G20 presidency, we built a consensus on harnessing AI responsibly for good and for all. Today, India leads in AI adoption and techno-legal solutions on data privacy. We are developing AI applications for public good. We have one of the world's largest AI talent pools. India is building its own large language model considering our diversity. We also have a unique public-private partnership model for pooling resources like compute power. It is made available to our startups and researchers at an affordable cost. And India is ready to share its experience and expertise to ensure that AI future is for good and for all. Friends, we are at the dawn of the AI age that will shape the course of humanity. Some people worry about machines becoming superior in intelligence to humans, but no one holds the key to our collective future and shared destiny other than us humans. That sense of responsibility must guide us. Thank you.
So there you saw live visuals from Paris AI summit co-chaired by India and France. Prime Minister Modi of India making his remarks, which lasted for about 10 minutes. Well, Prime Minister talked about how AI future for good and all, and how significantly AI is reshaping the polity, the economy and security of the world. Some of the excerpts or operating portions as far as Prime Minister Modi's remarks, or opening remarks at the AI summit in France is concerned. He also said that artificial intelligence is the writing code for humanity in this century, and also how this is significant when it comes to the deep-rooted interdependence we see across borders. In that sense, artificial intelligence also plays a very pivotal role in terms of building trust, and this trust in AI space particularly. He also spoke about how governance is not only about managing risk, but also for deploying such technologies for global goods, referring to artificial intelligence, of course. Prime Minister Modi talked about how this is important to think deeply about global governance and how AI or artificial intelligence can aid in that, and particularly the use of artificial intelligence for helping transforming lives, and particularly the kind of impact it can have in sectors like education, in health, in space, etc. We can discuss this with our special panel, the special panel of guests who continue to be with us on this special broadcast. Let's have them on the screen. Thank you so much, all of you, for standing by patiently and yes, listening to those very interesting remarks by Prime Minister Modi. I would say agenda-setting remarks by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And before that, we also saw French President Emmanuel Macron greeting and opening, formally opening the summit, co-chaired by India and France, of course. I would like to start with Ambassador Sikri, ma'am. What do you think is the largest or perhaps the main messaging here as far as India speaking to the world from the summit venue, where you have you're co-chairing France, being an important member of the EU, and I think I can look at this speech and there are two main divisions. First, the overall aspect of the significance of AI in global governance. Second, India's own AI, AI vision for the good of the people of the country. What we have done with AI, what do we intend to do with AI for the global good here in case for India. Ambassador Sikri, your remarks, and then we can go to the other case.
Thank you for that. It was a very inspiring address, and I think he really laid out perspectives for the world on what this AI summit can do. You're right to focus on the global good, because that was what he began with. But I think I would focus a lot on what he said about the global south.
Yes.
And he said that the leadership, India's role, I think, as a naturally recognized leader of the global south, India has already hosted summits, virtual summits of the global south leaders. So I think he dwelt a lot on what AI can do for the global south to improve their lives in the areas of education, in the areas of health, and in the areas of technology. So he gave a lot of focus on this, and we must, in this summit, look at how the global south can benefit, because these are the countries which are way behind and which can benefit so much by the use of AI for the benefit of their people.
I'll just request you just give me 20 seconds here, because Professor Swaran Singh has to leave. So I'm very keen to know his the overall messaging, his thoughts on what was the larger impact or the message here, as far as Prime Minister Modi is, that those remarks are concerned?
Thank you, Sakal. I think this was one of the most succinct exposition of India's position by Prime Minister in just 10 minutes. And to me, the strength of such a outlining of a vision lies in, also sharing India's own example. He did mention of India today having world's largest AI pool, and therefore the success of India's public-private partnership and so on, where India has developed so many of pro-people applications and applied that across board, as he mentioned, to 1.4 billion people in that sense. So once he outlines his vision by giving an example of India where we have already achieved several things on the ground, implemented them, then him talking about democratizing, making people-centric applications, and two things I think he underlined very significantly other than the Global South focus. One, he mentioned how there is an enormous fear around the world of people losing jobs. And he did mention how historically, every time this question has arisen, but jobs have always been there, only the new jobs are created when some of the older jobs disappear. And therefore, the focus, as he mentioned, has to be on reskilling our people to prepare them for what he called the new age of AI future. Second, I think he also underlined another very central fear around the world of AI being really energy intense kind of pursuit of knowledge and pursuit of technology, to which again he underlined that the answer lies in transition to green technologies, where again, India and France have launched a very successful global solar alliance, and the whole other effort which you see India participating in climate change summits also mentions about the whole transition to green energies. And I think that was very clearly showcasing a clear understanding of what are the challenges and what are the answers that we need to look at to make sure how AI can help, as he mentioned, in our pursuit of making sustainable development goals, which are in a disarray slightly, to be, back in control, and we are able to achieve much more in implementing our sustainable development
I will go back to,
so
yes, I will go back to Ambassador Sikri. I've been told that ma'am also has some engagements. Ma'am, you were making that point. You can complete your point. And with that, I also want your thoughts on how Prime Minister Modi also talk about, while towards the, the second portion of his speech was dedicated to Brand India, where he also spoke about the digital public infrastructure in India, how we are using our own digital revolution back home.
I think, first of all, I'd like to also, as I was saying before I was interrupted,
please go ahead, ma'am.
that I think one of the important aspects that Prime Minister Modi highlighted was the issues which we have to be careful about in the development of AI, and I'm sure this summit will also be looking at them. He mentioned the issue of cybersecurity, and I think this is a very important issue that has to be tackled, and the issue that has to be looked at, and to see how it can be done in an ethical way, and the governance issues for cybersecurity have to be looked at. He spoke about disinformation, because we do know that the AI has a great capacity to create disinformation. I mean, if AI is feeding wrong information, you type in an issue on which you want a feedback and you get wrong information, maybe factually incorrect information or politically slanted information or deliberately warped information, it can be very dangerous for the users and can create a whole lot of problems. He also spoke about the dangers of deep fake, and we know that deep fake issues are very major in AI, and already we are seeing that so many political leaders and others, you have suddenly deep fake moments coming up for them, which completely distort what they have said or what they want to say. And then, of course, this use of technology, the localization of technology for use by the global South countries was another very, very important issue that he had spoken about. You've already mentioned about the issue of the example he gave about digital public infrastructure use in India. And the highlight of this example not only is the success of the use of digital public infrastructure in India, but the very low cost at which it has been brought into use, and it has been brought into such a massive across the board use by everybody, by millions, hundreds of millions of people at a very, very low cost. And it's an example of how it is not just the very high cost that one is looking at. One is looking at educating the people, enabling them to use the tools like AI and information technology for the benefit of the public at large. And I think this is very important. And he spoke about the G20 summit and what the G20 summit had laid the basis for this. These were some of the major points that he made. I think it's a very important speech which will lay the ground for the discussions in the AI summit.
Like I said, agenda setting speech. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sikri. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, ma'am. And Greg, I'm going to come to you. Please be a little more patient because we need to revisit some of these very significant bites from Prime Minister's speech addressing the AI Action Summit in Paris. Just a while back, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that AI, or the artificial intelligence, is already reshaping our economy, our society and our security. Let's listen in.
Well, Prime Minister Modi's speech, I mean, it's about what I would anticipate. I mean, Prime Minister Modi represents the leader of one of the major...
and even our society. AI is writing the code for humanity in this century. But it is very different from other technology milestones in human history. AI is developing at an unprecedented scale and speed, and being adapted and deployed even faster. There is also a deep interdependence across borders. Therefore, there is a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that uphold our shared values, address risks, and build trust. AI is already reshaping our polity, our economy, our security, and even our society. AI is writing the code for humanity in this century. But it is very different from other technology milestones in human history. AI is developing at an unprecedented scale and speed, and being adapted and deployed even faster. There is also a deep interdependence across borders. Therefore, there is a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that uphold our shared values, address risks, and build trust.
Greg, coming to you, building trust in AI space because there's a deep interdependence across the borders. I think that's a very significant statement by India there at the summit. Greg, your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting from a number of perspectives. I mean, the first one, when talking about technology, especially a new technology as this, most focus on the engineering components. But Prime Minister Modi put the human and mankind at the centre of focus and the welfare of mankind. And I think this fits in with what I was saying earlier, that, I mean, India has that tradition, this non-alignment tradition, and this comes across in the speech. I mean, not as a form of culture and identity, it expresses this need to not create these gaps and these winners and losers, but rather to even out these inequalities and to guard it against creating them. So I think the speech very much embodies this putting mankind, their welfare at the centre of things, but understanding not only the benefits and strengths of this rapidly developing technology, but also the potential weaknesses and threats. And I think he did that very eloquently.
Also, digital public infrastructure, Professor Swaran Singh, and India, how India is developing its own model of artificial intelligence. Professor Swaran Singh, would you like to come in here? Because there was also the showcasing of brand India in AI space and in digital infrastructure. Before that, I take this opportunity to thank Greg Simons. Thank you very much. You joined us live all the way from Sweden on this special broadcast. It's always a pleasure having you, Greg. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure. Thank you.
See you very soon. Thank you. Yes, Professor Singh.
Yes, thank you, Sakal. This is true that India has almost turned this whole narrative of technology transfers on its head through its DPIs, digital public infrastructure. Historically, advanced technologies were not easy to come by other than if you invented it yourself. And a country that invented modern technologies would not easily share with others or share at very high cost only with friends. Now with DPIs, whether it is CoWIN or various UPI apps, India has transformed the narrative saying anyone who wants to take these can take it for free in that sense. So in expanding the access, as Prime Minister also said in his speech just now, putting together resources and talent, and then building trust, building quality data sets is what should be the pursuit when you want to bring all stakeholders together and ensure that the benefit goes to the largest part of humanity in that sense. So India has spoken by showcasing an example of its own, where it has, as Prime Minister mentioned, tried to ensure that various apps that are created reach out to 1.4 billion people or beyond, to several other countries who are today using India's DPIs in various countries. So in that sense, I think this sharing of India's vision, sharing of India's way of resolving challenges that appear to be formidable when we move towards AI. You remember he also mentioned that, you know, the application of AI is happening at rapidly, enormously faster pace, even before we get to understand it. And you have this example of DeepSeek. One day, people are celebrating it, saying, wow, this is the cost-effective new AI technology which is available now. The next day, countries are banning it. Countries are saying, oh, this is going to access information that you do not want it to access. It is able to read the punching of sentences when you do on your screen, that it is freely telling you how to make biological weapons. So the implementation is at such a rapid pace that people don't even sometimes understand what is happening to them and then forget about regulating, which is a much difficult, formidable task. And still more difficult is how to legislate controlling these technologies being unleashed. That is where he started by saying that the focus should not be on competition and mad race to be better than the other. Focus has to be on human development, on governance, and thereby focusing on global south, which he mentioned often lacks in finance and technology in various sectors from healthcare, education, agriculture, and so on. So I think it's a very holistic, balanced approach where India has reflected a very good
that point on India also has another significant point, since we are talking about India's own AI or in brand India in AI space, where Prime Minister talked about how India also has, India is one of the countries with the largest AI talent pool.
Absolutely. And that is simply so because India today is world's largest population country. But India also has largest youth population on the planet. And I assume young people are very often much better in adopting to the change. particularly when it comes to technology-driven change. And therefore, I think India has now fourth largest set of startups, a large number of unicorns and so on, is a reflection of that aspirational India, which is also AI that you, Sakal, mentioned earlier. And that is what makes it very interesting, but also very effective, the way India wants to carry forward what Prime Minister mentioned, India's AI mission, which is where it wants to make sure that it connects the last person on the line also as beneficiary of what India is trying to do at the very top level, in that sense of being at the advanced frontiers of AI technology. And if the focus is how it delivers on the ground, then I think the approach to building that technology definitely is going to be very different compared to.
In fact, since we are talking about how PM spoke about brand India in digital infrastructure and AI space, let's revisit that portion again. Professor Swaran Singh, requesting you to stay with us. Like you mentioned, Prime Minister Modi highlighted that India has successfully built a digital infrastructure, and importantly that at a very low cost. Let's listen.
India has successfully built a digital public infrastructure for over 1.4 billion people at a very low cost. It is built around an open and accessible network. It has regulations and a wide range of applications to modernize our economy, reform governance, and transform the lives of our people. We have unlocked the power of data through our data empowerment and protection architecture. And we have made digital commerce democratic and accessible to all. This vision is the foundation of India's national AI mission.
Prime Minister Modi stressed that AI can help transform millions of lives by improving health, education, agriculture, and so much more. In fact, adding that it can help create a world in which the journey to sustainable development goals becomes more easier and faster.
AI can help transform millions of lives by improving health, education, agriculture, and so much more. It can help create a world in which the journey to sustainable development goals becomes easier and faster.
Professor Swaran Singh continues to stay with us. If you would have also noticed, Professor Singh, in the 10 minutes outreach by Prime Minister Modi, there were multiple mentions of words like trust, responsibility, deploying for global goods, etc. Now, this amidst the current war in AI space between China and the West and the hegemony, battle for hegemony, etc. There's a message there.
Yes, I think there is a very polite and indirect reference here. When Prime Minister talks about trust being a very central focus of how AI development should take place, of course we are all aware of competition driving the pursuits in United States and China right now. And that is where I think competition should not be driving AI futures. Trust and open and accessible networks, as Prime Minister mentioned, which is how India has approached artificial intelligence and multiple applications that need no training. And therefore, trust is very significant. Any technology that transforms the life raises fears very often. But when it is driven by geopolitics, it generates much more skepticism than a usual new technology will. And therefore, artificial intelligence-driven applications which are rapidly transforming our lives would would really require enormous focus on trust among all the stakeholders, both developers, supporters, and people who are using, the users of AI technology. And India has done that. And therefore, I think India is talking by example of having developed DPIs, having utilized, put them on the ground. People are using them in large numbers. For healthcare, for example, CoWIN was very significant platform during the pandemic period. And various UPIs are now being used across India and beyond India. And in that sense, when you involve all the stakeholders, developers, financiers, people who provide technological support, or people who are users, is something that is being underlined here to create data sets that are secure, protection is ensured, but at the same time, enormous open access in terms of democratizing and making people safer from things like deep fakes, Prime Minister mentioned. And deep fakes has also been for about 3 to 4 years a major issue in Prime Minister's speeches, which is something that also disrupts the ecosystems. In fact, he also mentioned the development of AI technology should be sensitive to locations. Local ecosystems have to be kept in mind.
He said that technology is rooted in social ecosystem. Technology is rooted in social ecosystem. What does he mean by that?
Meaning that you cannot have apps developed which will be utilized exactly in the same format across the world. And once you start focusing on local ecosystems, you strengthen the overall innovation, because each new perspective helps you grow and do things better. And therefore, if one is conscious of developing AI applications with keeping in mind local ecosystems, strengths, requirements, and the way of operations, then of course the larger picture of AI mission, whether it is at the level of India's AI mission or at the level of global partnership for artificial intelligence, like the summit is happening in Paris, it is going to be far more cost effective, far more easy to operate, far more effective. Because as we usually say, the more representative a technology is, the more effective the technology is going to be. And therefore, it should not be built only in major cosmopolitan centers and then applied exactly verbatim everywhere around the world. And therefore, Prime Minister underlined the need to be conscious of local social, political, economical ecosystems as to how each of these can contribute in building the larger, bigger picture of AI innovation. In fact, next year is already declared to be India-France year of innovation. And in that sense, I think India and France are going to work together in how to not just focus on transactions, but also in terms of joint development, joint innovation, and so on. And then, of course, go all the way to the Horizon 2047 roadmap that they have in terms of partnership, leading to Viksit Bharat being India's aim in this case. And AI is going to start that new age and is the locomotive of the rapid transformation which India is trying to really promote, not just in India, but across the world in that sense. And therefore take a leading position in how not just technologies are developed, but also how responses to utilization of that technology in terms of governance, regulation, legislation is conceived of in terms of building rules and regulations. At all levels, India is willing to engage. And we see that picture happening today in Paris.
We'll also talk about that point on skilling and reskilling, Professor Swaran Singh. But before that, it also listen to that portion again, where Prime Minister added that there is a need to invest in skilling and need to invest in reskilling our people for an AI-driven future, stressing that the loss of jobs is AI's most feared disruption. But history has shown that work does not disappear due to technology. Let's listen.
Loss of jobs is AI's most feared disruption. But history has shown that work does not disappear due to technology. Its nature changes and new types of jobs are created. We need to invest in skilling and reskilling our people for an AI-driven future.
Prime Minister also added that India leads in AI adoption and techno-legal solutions on data privacy, and India is developing AI applications for public good. Prime Minister added that India is ready to share its experience and expertise to ensure that the AI future is for good and for all.
Today, India leads in AI adoption and techno-legal solutions on data privacy. We are developing AI applications for public good. We have one of the world's largest AI talent pools. India is building its own large language model considering our diversity, and India is ready to share its experience and expertise to ensure that AI future is for good and for all.
So India stands for good AI future, which is good for one and all. Professor Swaran Singh, so that perhaps outlines the broader agenda of AI technology for good, and that, prime priority that India also accorded. We spoke about those broader contours of the summit to bridge the technological divide in AI space.
True. I think Prime Minister's speech, in fact, started by mentioning how very often the kind of resources, whether it is technology or finance, are often seen lacking in global south, and therefore when you focus on human development, then one has to make sure that largest number of countries, largest number of people are able to become beneficiaries of AI development, which will have applications, as he mentioned, in healthcare, in education, in agriculture. And when it comes to that kind of massification of artificial intelligence, he also underlined India having the largest talent pool of AI experts in India, and therefore being able to potentially contribute in expanding the bandwidth of both the range of applications and actual operation of those applications on the ground in that sense. And you heard Prime Minister saying India is happy to share India's technologies with all, and the focus has to be public good, to make sure it should be transitioned, transferred on whatever terms the countries may like, on free basis, open and free access, but at the same time ensuring trust, ensuring techno-regulation, ensuring that protection that people need, and of course the fears that he also underlined in terms of jobs disappearing. Jobs only change, as he mentioned, and therefore we need to focus on upskilling, reskilling and skilling the larger number of workforce, and also in that sense focusing on other great fear of AI technologies being much more energy intense in utilization, and therefore transition to green technology. So I think he clearly underlined India's vision, but also by giving examples of where India can contribute, where India has already achieved certain level of success in this field, and therefore saying that AI, which is going to transform our lives, is inevitable. That's the new era, new age which is opening to us, and we must make sure we understand it and we make sure that we are able to utilize it to the best of our possibilities, best of our potential, and how it can facilitate our journey, as he said, towards sustainable development goals, which have been in a disarray partly because of the pandemic derailing some of these things. So a very succinct, very effective exposition of where India stands on that subject.
You know that India, all the points, all the dots that were leading to where India stands on the AI space. Remember we spoke about how PM has always connected AI and the other AI, that's the Aspirational India. And I think those were the tenets. so to speak, when it comes to the broader vision of aspirational India in AI space. Professor Swaran Singh, we'll request you to stay with us, sir, because we need to take a very short breather here. We take a break here and our special broadcast continues. On the other side, we'll get more excerpts from Prime Minister of India's address at the AI Action Summit in Paris after the break.
Timeless, boundless and infinite, the essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Thanks for staying with us. AI Action Summit, a special broadcast. We are getting you some live reportage from DD India's Tapash Bhattacharya, who joins us live from Paris. But before that, we also get you some highlights of Prime Minister's address at the opening session of the AI Summit, which concluded just a while back, where Prime Minister Modi of India said that artificial intelligence is developing at an unprecedented scale and speed, and then being adopted and deployed even faster. Prime Minister Modi said that there is also a deep interdependence across borders.
We are at the dawn of the AI age that will shape the course of humanity. Some people worry about machines becoming superior in intelligence to humans. But no one holds the key to our collective future and shared destiny other than us humans. That sense of responsibility must guide us.
Let's go once again live across to Professor Swaran Singh. About that point on, we must discuss openly about innovation and governance. Professor Swaran Singh, your thoughts? We must discuss openly. Again, that underlying point of mutual trust in AI space.
True. Sakal, Prime Minister underlined another fear about machine learning and AI potentially becoming more intelligent than humans. That is where the collective and cooperation and coordination at the global level he underlined is significant. If the future of humanity has to continuously remain in the hands of humans, then we need to really go across and engage all the stakeholders, build cooperation at the global level, rather than reinvent the wheel for each of us separately. And if we are able to collaborate and cooperate together, as he underlined, and that can happen only by building trust and then ensuring open access to AI applications amongst all the stakeholders who will participate in working together. And working together, they will also develop various techno-regulations to develop good governance as to how AI must stay on course and does not become too disruptive in the future in that sense. So building trust, building global collaborations is what is being underlined. I think that comes very natural to India because Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is very central axiom in India's civilization. And therefore, world being one family comes very natural how we look at our problems and our solutions being located at the level of entire humanity. And therefore, the global good also is possible if the global community, major stakeholders come and work together. And then, of course, ensure protection and trust.
Sir, yes, sir. Professor Swan Singh, I would just request you to be with us, because we are now going live to DT India's Taposh Bhattacharya, who's been reporting relentlessly from Paris as a build-up to the big event there. Taposh, bonjour to you. And I believe you've been joined by the guests there also. But before I hand it over to you, Taposh, quick one. How has been Prime Minister Modi's opening remarks being received by the galaxy of AI luminaries and world leaders, from how AI is writing the code for humanity to AI in aspirational India? Over to you.
Well, bang on there, Sakal. When it comes to AI, Prime Minister Modi has already mentioned the fact that it is Aspiration India for a country of 1.4 billion people. It is high time that they take up. This is a new technology. It's a technology that will define the future, and it is high time that a country like India, come together and build on this. So the future will be built on AI, and Indo-French relationship, Indo-French friendship is expected to be a cornerstone for that particular future. The idea is very simple, that he mentioned the fact that in a global south, AI needs to have, it has to be democratized. It has to reach everyone. The benefit of AI should percolate down to the basics of the people. So the poor should also get the benefit of the AI revolution, and that is where the challenge will be. Right now, AI is with certain people. It's with certain companies. It's a proprietary, mostly the business that has been done. So the challenge will be to democratize that, and the challenge will be to give it to the people who require it the most, especially to the global south. And that is where Prime Minister Modi's vision is. And to talk more about that, I have with me a Frenchman who is working closely with India. In fact, classic example of India-French relationship. Sir, first introduce yourself to our audiences and tell us how India-French relationship especially can build around AI.
Yes, my name is Erwan de Kerotem. I'm CEO of MediaOne. We are a software French-based company, a neutral and independent company.
That's the key point here.
Absolutely. And we work hand in hand with AI, Indian-based AI, provided by a company called Rivalry, which belongs to Reliance. And we have a third partner, Brahman International, which is also an Indian-based, what we call a language service provider. Right. What we bring is digitalization of as many languages as possible for Indian people to access everyone in his language, his or her language, native language. So we announced at the summit the extension of our video localization platform to 11 Indian languages.
That's you mean to say 11 Indian languages will have their own video localization content?
Absolutely, including 3 APIs, the 3 pillars of AI. AI comes from language processing. So first, speech to text, you need in Hindi, Punjabi, Oriya, etc. You need transcription, then you need to translate, and then you can also use speech synthesis to dub, to do a voiceover. Right. So you give access not only in each language, but also for hearing impaired or visually impaired population.
Right. So, Sakal, I wanted to mention this fact that the biggest concern right now is about data security. It is about the deepfake. I wanted to ask, sir, that what exactly is your company doing, and what exactly is French companies are doing to safeguard the data and the privacy?
There are 3 facets of data security, and at MediaOne we provide the highest security on 3 pillars. Coding is in-house for 10 years. Hosting is a web hoster, OVH Cloud, which is the unique European-based, legally based in Europe, host provider. And also by providing on a bare metal servers. So servers we configure entirely. So this way we can protect, we can offer the maximum, it's not 100%, but the maximum security of against leaks or against a misuse of your data.
So right now the idea is to, the world is moving towards generative AI. Do you believe that you mentioned the fact that data is an issue, but do you believe that the standardization needs to be done? The standards of industry, we believe that in this particular AI summit, that will be set.
I think it's crucial. I mean, there's a lot of talks about deregulation and opening to anyone and at any conditions. I think India and Europe share, India and France and India and Europe. France is the country of the copyright, respecting since the 18th century. We respect authors, we respect people who create content, whether text, video, films, etc.,
yes.
music,
Right.
and this is essential.
Yeah,
go ahead.
If you could just ask Erwinde to describe what, and I also take this opportunity to welcome Swasti Rao on the special broadcast. Swasti, we're connected live to our reporter in France. Just to understand for French co-hosting this very important third edition of AI Summit at this juncture, what are their expectations from India in driving the global agenda of AI forward, especially taking in preview the opening remarks of Prime Minister Modi. Tapash, very quickly.
Right. So very quickly, what are your expectations from India when it comes to this AI summit? It's India's co-chairing this.
Well, in India, you have private and public challenges. So we want to address with Rivalry and Brahman, we want to address private challenges in corporate, to address blue collars, e-learning, training, etc., and also public needs in education, in agriculture, in development, etc., to our awareness campaigns or entertainment. So how to address linguistic diversity in public and private challenges.
That's a very very important point. Linguistic diversity is there to how to address those, and importantly, Prime Minister Modi also spoke about the fact that it is high time that governance is being taken in a forefooting. He mentioned also the fact that if AI has to, it is not necessarily it will take job. You have to do skilling, you have to do reskilling.
Correct.
So those are very important point that he has mentioned, and probably as India's AI mission is going forward, it's a multi-billion-dollar AI mission that India has started. That particular mission, the focus will be to reskill Indian workforce. It's a 1.2 billion workforce which is there for the AI. So the idea will be to skill them, reskill them, make sure that they have the potential to not just drive India's AI industry, but to drive world's AI industry. Remember, we have a huge number of databases. So when it comes to data, when I spoke to other people here, so data is the most important thing, and India has
one of the largest
tons of data
pool in AI.
to process them.
Yes,
absolutely. So those are the things that India will look to implement and build upon.
Okay, I'll have to leave it there, but many thanks, Tapas, and also to our special guest, Erwinde Karathom. Mercy to him. Thank you, both of you. We'll, of course, Tapas, keep coming back to you. You have a very long day ahead. Thanks for joining. Thank you. And Swasti,
much appreciated.
Well, thank you for standing by patiently. Can we go to Swasti also?
I will try.
Swasti, yes. So from writing codes for humanity, from describing brand AI and aspirational India, our digital public infrastructure, there was so much packed in that very 10 minutes speech, which was very inclusive, but also agenda setting globally speaking in AI space. Your comments, please.
So very quickly, Sakal, I think what we have to keep in mind, there are a couple of things that I would like to flag here. Of course, India is not a prime actor when it comes to regulation on AI or development on AI, but at the same time, the scale at which we offer ourselves to the world, which is with our 1.5 billion people and millions of skilled workforce, we are the brains behind the Silicon Valley, aren't we? So similarly, if you look at the three major players in the competition, the global AI competition or the global digital order, you have the United States on the one hand, you have China, and then you have the European Union. And what is happening right now in Paris is something which is unprecedented, because France has kind of taken the leadership for trying to give an action plan into how to regulate AI all over the world. And what India brings on to that table is the concerns of the Global South, because Global South is most vulnerable to all these disinformation and all the harmful effects of AI and its intersection with the common people. So right now, from India's perspective, yes, on the one hand, this means that India-France bilateral relations are extremely innovative. Let's not forget that the year 2026 is labeled as the Indo-French year of innovation. And in this 1 year, we will see a lot of development when it comes to triangular cooperation on AI, etc., from the French side and from the Indian side. That's one key takeaway. The other key takeaway is that this also shows the strength of the India-France bilateral relationship, because a lot of people would argue that India-France bilateral relationship is only relegated to the defense sphere or the nuclear cooperation, energy cooperation sphere, or the space sphere. I would argue that no, this is a constantly evolving relationship which is extremely capable of matching to the demands of what the world is demanding. The third thing is that from India's perspective, we are going to be looking at what kind of investments can come back to India, because like you said, and the Prime Minister said, that we are looking at job creation, we are looking at sort of a more stable, transparent and ethical order when it comes to AI regulation. And for that, of course, India is also voicing the concerns of the global south. So in that sense, being inclusive. So just like the Indo-Pacific, which is free, open and inclusive, I think our mantra for the AI architecture is also the same, that it has to be, reaching to all the countries of the global south. It has to be inclusive in that, regard. It has also to create jobs and also be a mutual win-win when it comes to how India and, for example, France looks at the world, which is a very multipolar world. So I think India is a very, very important pole when it comes to reinforcing the fact that the digital global order must also remain as multipolar as the world economic order or the security order.
And how do you see India's role being central to that, driving the agenda of transparency, trust and responsible AI? And I think significant portions of Prime Minister Modi's opening remarks were dedicated to those lines, on those lines rather. Overall messaging here, Swasti, one final question.
Well, so the overall, messaging from my side would be the same, which is that, yes, AI is growing at an unprecedented speed and scale. We were a little slow somewhere, because even though we had a strategy that was put together last year, we did not really have, consolidated programs or concentrated, I would say, a kind of a blueprint to go ahead. But this particular AI summit in France is actually giving that vantage point to India, where India can really sort of play a meaningful role. And like I said, the end of the day, the proof of the pudding is going to be in eating. And ultimately, I'm actually looking forward to what kind of, investments are going to be brought into India, not only within the country, but also in terms of a more triangular framework of cooperation. So you kind of, join hands with the developed country of the West, and you also bring your infrastructure to the developing world. And I think that is perhaps what India is looking at. Yeah. So not just India's own benefit, but also that of the entire world.
And I think when Prime Minister said AI's future is for good and for all, I think that's something, that sentiment summed it up for us. Thank you very much, Swasti Rao. I'm sorry we couldn't come more to you, but it was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us on this.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of AI Action Summit special broadcast. But on the other side, DD India News Hour with more news and updates. We also take a look at the other important stories after a short breather. Stay with us on DD India, and thank you for joining us from me and my entire team. Thank you.
उछलता है